You wake up and reach for your phone before your eyes even open fully. The light burns, the noise begins, and your mind is already under siege. You think you're starting the day, but you've already surrendered the first battle. The battle for your attention. Distraction is the modern enemy. It creeps into every empty moment, whispering that you deserve rest when you haven't earned it. It offers you comfort and steals your clarity, leaving you too numb to notice how much of your strength is fading. You tell yourself you'll focus tomorrow, that you'll start training next week, that you'll be serious when you're ready, but days pass and readiness never comes. You scroll, compare, and postpone the life you're supposed to live. The truth is, most people lose not because they're weak, but because they're scattered. Their energy leaks through every moment of hesitation. They want to master something, yet they run from the boredom that mastery demands. Miyamoto Musashi never ran. In his time, Japan was a storm of ambition, blood, and pride. Yet he walked calmly through it. 61 duels, 61 victories, he never lost. Not because his hands were faster, but because his mind was still. Musashi understood something the modern world has forgotten. That the greatest duel is not fought against another warrior, but against the chaos inside one's own mind. Once you conquer that, no one can defeat you. And that, he believed, is the true way of the warrior, a call to the path. If you feel something stirring inside as you hear this, don't ignore it. Stay until the end. Because what follows is not entertainment, it's a path that could reshape how you think, work, and live. These teachings have the power to turn distraction into focus, weakness into rhythm, and fear into calm. If you want to walk that path, subscribe and stay close. We are not here to chase quick motivation or empty inspiration. We are here to forge the mind, to strip away everything soft until only discipline remains. Chapter 1. The Desert of Defeat. Centuries ago, Japan was divided by war. Swords clashed in every province, and ambition filled the air like smoke. Men dreamed of fame, power, and honor, but only a few ever touched true mastery. Among them was Musashi, a man unlike any other. Where others trained for glory, he trained for stillness. Where others feared defeat, he studied its shape until it lost its power. One evening, as Musashi practiced beneath a line of cedar trees, a young man approached him. His name was Renji, a proud, restless apprentice who had heard rumors of Musashi's impossible record. He believed that if he could train under this living legend, he too could become invincible. Renji bowed deeply. "Master," he said, "teach me how to win." Musashi didn't look up. "You wish to win?" he asked. "Then you must first learn how to lose." Renji frowned. "I've lost before, that's why I've come to learn victory." Musashi's gaze lifted slowly. "You've been defeated in body, not in mind. There's a difference." He pointed toward a large stone near the edge of the clearing. "Strike that rock until you understand." Chapter 2. The Young Blade. At first, Renji obeyed. He drew his sword and struck the rock again and again, his arms burning and his breath ragged. The sound echoed through the forest like a drum of frustration. Hours passed. The blade chipped, his hands blistered, and still Musashi said nothing. The silence began to mock him. Every swing became heavier, filled with anger and doubt. Finally, Renji dropped to his knees. "What am I supposed to learn from this?" he shouted. "I came to learn the sword, not break it." Musashi stood, his calm presence cutting through the noise of Renji's outburst. "You came to learn victory," he said. "The sword is only the mirror." Renji didn't understand. He looked down at his cracked blade and bleeding palms. "How does this help me win?" Musashi walked past him and touched the stone lightly. "You see this rock as an obstacle, I see it as a teacher. You strike with anger, hoping to break it. I strike with rhythm, knowing the rock cannot move." "But I can." Renji looked at him, confused. "Then what is victory?" Musashi's voice was soft but piercing. "When your mind no longer trembles before the strike." Chapter 3. The Mirror of Failure. Days later, Renji entered a village duel. Desperate to prove that his training meant something, he faced a local swordsman, confident that his time with Musashi had given him strength. But within seconds, his blade was on the ground, and the crowd was laughing. Shame burned through him. He felt exposed, humiliated, and hollow. As he walked back toward the forest, anger filled every step. He cursed Musashi's lessons, calling them foolish and pointless. When he reached the clearing, Musashi was meditating. "You said your training would make me strong," Renji shouted. "But I lost." Musashi opened his eyes and looked at him with quiet clarity. Then you have seen your true enemy, Renji's anger faltered. My opponent was faster? No, Musashi interrupted. Your opponent was calmer. You lost to your own agitation long before he drew his sword. Renji fell silent. Musashi rose and picked up his wooden weapon, moving with slow, deliberate grace. His strikes were simple, almost casual, yet they carried a weight that Renji couldn't describe. You fight to win, Musashi said. I fight to understand. The difference is everything. Renji clenched his fists. How can I understand if I keep losing? Musashi stopped and looked directly at him. Losing is not the problem. Refusing to see what loss reveals, that is the true defeat. Chapter 4. The first cut is the mind. That night, under a fading moon, Musashi drew 5 lines in the sand with the tip of his sword. His movements were slow and deliberate, as if each stroke carried meaning beyond words. These, he said, are the 5 principles that have guided me through every duel. Learn them, and you will understand what it means to walk undefeated. He pointed to the first line. Know the way broadly. If you only learn one skill, your mind becomes rigid, but when you study many things, art, nature, rhythm, your awareness expands. You begin to see patterns where others see chaos. Renji frowned. But shouldn't the swordsman focus only on the sword? Musashi shook his head. The sword is only one expression of truth to understand the way. You must see how all things connect, a painter, a farmer, a warrior. Each seeks mastery through rhythm, learn rhythm, and the sword will follow. He pointed to the second line. Discipline over desire. Desire burns fast and blinds you. Discipline burns slow and shapes you. If you rely on passion, you will quit when it fades, but if you rely on structure, nothing can move you. Renji looked down at his calloused hands, remembering his frustration by the rock. I see now, he murmured. I wanted progress without patience. Musashi nodded. Exactly. You wished to win before you had even trained. True discipline is doing what is necessary even when your heart resists. It is the fire that tempers steel. He drew his finger across the third line. Observe without judgment. When you watch others, you compare. When you watch yourself, you criticize, but both cloud your vision. You must learn to see without labeling, to observe reality as it is. Renji hesitated. That sounds impossible, Musashi smiled faintly. It is difficult, yes, but once you stop calling things good or bad, you begin to see them as they truly are. That is when understanding begins. The forest around them was silent except for the sound of crickets. Musashi looked toward the horizon. In every duel, the battle is won before the blades meet. The swordsman who sees clearly, without fear or judgment, already stands in victory. Renji took a breath. Then the first cut. Is the mind? Musashi's eyes softened. Yes. And it is the hardest one to make. Chapter 5, Training in Silence. Beginning. The next morning, Renji found a note on the stone where he once struck in frustration. It read, When you can hear your breath without noise in your thoughts, you are ready. There was no sign of Musashi. From that day forward, Renji trained alone. He practiced at dawn and rested only when the sun disappeared. His body ached, but he no longer sought approval. He was learning to listen to his breath, to the sound of the wind, to the silence between movements. At first, the quiet tormented him, without someone to measure against. He felt lost, but slowly he began to sense a rhythm. The subtle connection between breath and motion. His swings grew smoother, less forced, more natural. In stillness, he started to see himself clearly for the first time. The anger faded, the comparisons dissolved, and his practice became meditation. It was no longer about victory, it was about presence. And when Musashi returned weeks later, Renji was ready to learn the rest. Musashi returned at sunrise, carrying only a wooden sword and a small piece of parchment. He watched Renji move in silence for a long time. Saying nothing, the young man's strikes were slower now. But there was rhythm, the sound of someone who no longer rushed to prove himself. You have been alone, Musashi finally said. What did you find in the silence? Renji lowered his sword and bowed slightly. I found my own noise then. Little by little, I learned to hear beyond it. Musashi nodded. Good. A man who can hear silence is no longer a slave to his thoughts. He moves with purpose, not emotion. The master placed the parchment on the stone. On it was drawn a perfect circle. This, Musashi said, is the mind of the warrior. No beginning, no end, only flow. Renji looked at it closely. How do I stay within the circle? You do not stay within it, Musashi said. You become it. For months, Renji trained in that rhythm. His body hardened, but more importantly, his mind softened. He learned that discipline was not rigidity, but grace. To control the sword, he first had to stop forcing it. The blade, the hand, the breath, all moved as one. When he trained now, time vanished, the hours dissolved into movement, and the noise of the world fell away. In that silence, he began to sense something vast, a state that felt both empty and full. Musashi called it the void. Chapter 6, The Sword and the Smartphone. If Musashi were alive today, he would not duel with blades. He would duel with attention. In our time, the warrior's battlefield is the mind, and the enemy wears the mask of convenience. You may not hold a sword, but you fight every day, against distraction, against comfort, against the invisible current of noise that pulls you away from purpose. Your phone is your opponent, your habits are your battlefield, and your focus is the weapon you've forgotten to sharpen. When Musashi taught know the way broadly, he meant to see the patterns that unite all disciplines. The artist, the craftsman, the athlete, all fight the same battle. They must master boredom. They must embrace repetition. They must train without applause. Modern life tempts you to scatter your energy. One day you start a new project. The next you abandon it for another. You want to taste everything, but you master nothing. Musashi would call this the path of defeat. He would tell you that mastery begins where novelty ends. Only when the repetition feels unbearable does real progress start. Every strike, every rep, every word written in discipline. That is how the mind is shaped. You live in an age where focus is rare. And because it is rare, it is powerful. To master it is to hold a modern sword. The warrior of today is not the one who fights many battles, but the one who fights one battle well, the battle against his own distraction. Chapter 7, The Science of Mastery. Centuries after Musashi, neuroscience proved his wisdom true. A researcher at Kyoto University discovered that focused repetition physically reshapes the brain. The process is called myelinization. Every time you practice a skill without interruption, your neurons build a protective coating, allowing signals to travel faster and smoother. In simple terms, the mind becomes what it repeats. Psychologists call this neuroplasticity. Musashi called it training without distraction. He didn't need a laboratory to prove it. He lived it. Every moment of attention strengthened the invisible muscles of awareness. Every moment of drift weakened them. Harvard's study on elite athletes found that the difference between good and great performers wasn't talent but emotional regulation. Those who could stay calm under stress entered the flow state more often. A perfect harmony between body and mind. Musashi lived in this state constantly. He never fought with anger or panic. His stillness wasn't coldness. It was control. He taught that the moment your emotions take command, your perception narrows and your opponent gains power. The same is true in work. Art or conversation, emotional stillness opens the mind like a window after a storm. Modern science gave these truths names. Musashi simply called it seeing clearly. When the mind is still, skill becomes instinct. When instinct and awareness merge, there is no separation between thinking and acting, only the way. Chapter 8. The 5 Ancient Principles. Musashi's teachings were distilled into 5 eternal principles, 5 edges of the same blade. Each one is a key to mastery, both on the battlefield and in modern life. Number 1, clarity, know your path. Before any battle, Musashi asked himself one question: why am I fighting? Without clarity, every action is noise. Without purpose, every effort is wasted energy. You must decide what truly matters, not what others expect of you, not what looks impressive, what calls you when the world is quiet. Once you know your path, every distraction becomes obvious. You no longer chase every opportunity. You choose the few that align with your way. Number 2, discipline, train without mood. Musashi trained every day, regardless of weather, hunger, or pain. He removed choice from the equation. When you stop asking whether you feel like doing something, you free yourself from inconsistency. Discipline isn't punishment. It's freedom from chaos. When you act out of principle, not preference, the mind strengthens. Modern researchers call this identity-based habit, acting not from willpower, but from who you have chosen to be. Number 3, observation. See, without judgment. Most people see through the fog of emotion. They label, compare, and distort reality to protect their ego. Musashi trained to see things as they were. Not good, not bad, just truth. This practice builds awareness in any field. In combat, it reveals openings. In life, it reveals solutions. Psychologists now call it metacognition, observing your own thoughts as if they belong to someone else. This distance is power. It gives you control over your reactions, your choices, your future. Number 4, adaptability, flow like water. Musashi never relied on one technique. He shifted his stance, changed his timing, and broke rhythm when necessary. In one duel, he arrived hours late, frustrating his opponent into making mistakes. Adaptability made him unpredictable. In modern life, adaptability means releasing ego. When a method stops working, you evolve instead of clinging to it. Rigidity is the death of mastery, as Musashi wrote. Do nothing that is of no use. The master bends with life but never breaks. Number 5. The void act without fear or desire. At the highest level, Musashi spoke of the void, the state beyond thought. It is the moment when technique disappears and intuition takes over. Athletes call it flow. Monks call it presence. You reach the void not by seeking it, but by training until thought becomes unnecessary. When you act from this emptiness, you no longer fear failure or crave success. You simply move and the way moves with you. Musashi said, "When nothing is in your mind, you will see everything." That is the undefeated state. Not the absence of struggle, but the absence of conflict within yourself. Chapter 9. The disease of modern man. If Musashi could see our age, he would not marvel at our machines. He would mourn our weakness. He would see warriors with soft minds. Distracted by endless novelty, he would see people chasing shortcuts, calling themselves masters after a few attempts. You tell yourself you're too intelligent for repetition, too special for fundamentals. You switch goals as easily as you switch screens. But every time you start over, you lose momentum and your edge grows dull. Musashi would shake his head. He'd say, "You want to master the sword without calluses on your hands." He would remind you that discipline is not cruelty. It's the only form of love that leads to freedom. You drown in abundance and call it progress. You are surrounded by information but starved of understanding. You think passion will save you, but only structure will. Passion is a spark. Discipline is the fire that keeps you alive when the spark fades. The disease of modern man is not ignorance. It's comfort. You must choose your hardship. Train your attention as he trained his blade. And remember, the way rewards those who endure boredom with beauty. Chapter 10. The unseen duel. When Renji's training ended, he was no longer the same man who once struck rocks out of anger. His movements were calm, his eyes clear. One day, a messenger arrived. A rival swordsman had challenged him to a public duel. The villagers gathered, eager for spectacle. Renji accepted quietly. When he arrived, the air was thick with tension. His opponent paced, eager to strike first, but Renji stood still, watching the rhythm of the man's breath. He was no longer fighting the other. He was observing the pattern. When the strike came, Renji moved once, not faster, but cleaner. His blade met its mark as if guided by something beyond thought. The duel ended before the crowd could blink. There was no triumph in his eyes, only peace. Musashi, standing among the onlookers, gave a single nod. "You did not win because you are strong," he said. "You won because you no longer needed victory." That night, under a moonlit sky, Renji finally understood. The real duel had never been against another man. It had always been against himself. The restless, fearful mind that could not sit still, and now that enemy was gone. Chapter 11. The path continues. You are not so different from Renji. Your duels are fought with distraction, fatigue, and doubt. You fall, rise, and fall again. But if you keep walking, discipline will catch you where motivation fails. The 5 principles of Musashi are not relics of a forgotten age. They are a living map for anyone who seeks mastery in a world of noise. Clarity gives you direction. Discipline builds your rhythm. Observation keeps you honest. Adaptability keeps you alive. The void grants you peace. If you follow them, you will change, slowly at first, then suddenly your focus will sharpen, your actions will align, and your life will begin to feel like movement instead of reaction. The path is hard, but real. If you have walked with me this far, then you already know the first truth of the way. that mastery is not about talent, but about persistence. Subscribe, stay close, keep training, the forge of the mind never cools. And when the noise of the world rises again, remember Musashi's words. The ultimate aim of the way is not victory over others, but victory over oneself. You are the sword, you are the fire, you are the hand that shapes both. Walk the way and become undefeated.